So when we have these sort of three-dimensional figures, right, you can turn a three-dimensional figure into a two-dimensional sort of footprint almost, or a net of that shape, right, of that exact three-dimensional figure. So when a three-dimensional figure, like we read here, is cut and then sort of unfolded onto a flat surface, right, two-dimensional, then the flat representation is called a net. So if we have, I don't know if you can see it super well, but I've made this sort of rectangular prism here. So we have sort of, we can see that it has six faces all around and it is relatively closed. I'm sort of holding it closed. And when we sort of peel it apart and we open it up, right, you can see that we've turned this into a two-dimensional sort of representation of this three-dimensional shape. When it's folded up and it has a height and a width and a depth, right, then it's three dimensions. But here, when we unfold it, we can see all of the faces, right? And we can also see that it is now just two dimensions. So there are lots and lots of ways to draw a net of a three-dimensional figure. One method, like we see here, is to draw the base first. So you might think about the base first and then draw the sides sort of around the base and then think about putting the top on. So your job here is to think about how each of these shapes might be unfolding. So if we think about this top one first, up here, this sort of rectangular prism. If we take this idea of drawing the base first, so here is our base, and it looks like it's sort of angled at this point, but we can see that it is a rectangle because it has four right angles. So we're going to draw the bottom first. So here it is in red. And then what we can think about is, okay, we might then draw the sides around it. I think of these as the sides, these sort of shorter square things that sort of come up in that visual. So if I were looking at my figure here, it would be these parts coming off of the base, right? These little flaps. I might draw those on next. So I'm going to say those are blue and about this size. So then I might say, okay, well, let's go around to these sides. So this is also touching, this purple part here is touching the base, right? It folds up from the base. So you can see if this is the bottom right here, this is still touching it. So I want to draw that next. So I'm going to say it would go up, it would touch right here, right? It's touching right here. And then it would go up the same height as this blue thing. So I'm going to say it goes up or down in this case, about the same height. And obviously it has to be the same length as the bottom because it's connected, right? So then we're going to do that same thing over here. We can see it's touching the bottom, it's touching the red part, and it has to be the same size as the other purple one, right? It has to because we have a rectangular prism that closes. So they have to be the same size in order to make that shape. And finally, we know, right, that the top, which we can't really see, but we know lives in this space here, has to be the same size as the bottom, right? In order for sort of the lid, we have these all folded up. In order for the lid to close, it has to be the same size as the base or as the bottom. So we're going to make that hook on to the side. So when you think about this shape down here, well, first you want to think about which am I choosing as the base, right? You are in charge. You can envision this however you want. So I might think about, well, to me, this little skinny guy right here, it's kind of looking like it's on the bottom as far as my eyes are seeing it. So I might choose this as my base, right? And I'm going to start by drawing that. And everything else is going to touch around it. So then I might say, okay, well, I can see that these kind of tall, skinny parts are going to come up next, and they're touching from the skinny side, right? So these are going to go out this way. There's going to be two of them because there's two sides. And then finally, we're going to think about, okay, well, I can see that this is touching. So